Any biomolecule is easy to synthesize. Jim knows this. He's a synthetic chemist. What he probably means is that we haven't seen these biomacromolecules form spontaneously outside of a biological system. But that's not what he says.
So again, all of those videos that I was speaking on, those were all started out on Origin of Life. And so I didn't qualify every sentence. I qualified at the beginning of the talk, but that's not an important point. The thing is that there is this perception that biomolecules are easy to synthesize. Well, they're not easy to synthesize, as I'm showing, but they would be really hard to synthesize if you had to build the building blocks of the building blocks. What if I couldn't buy glucose and you had to make it? What if you had to make glucose? That's really hard to do, especially with prebiotic chemicals. He went on further to say nucleic acids, proteins, these are utterly trivial to synthesize. We even have machines that do it for us.
Jim is constantly talking about how we don't know how to make the 4 classes of biomolecules, which are nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. This is ridiculous. Nucleic acid synthesis and protein synthesis are utterly trivial. It's so easy to do that we even figured out how to make machines that do it for us. We type in the sequence we want on a computer, let the machine run, and we can get a DNA strand of any sequence of nucleotides we want, or a protein of any sequence of amino acids we want.
Wow, 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 wow. Any Origin of Life researchers out there that would like to defend this statement? It's what every one of these machines is doing. It's starting with the building blocks. It's essentially gone to Rock Auto and already bought the pieces. But what if you had to make the pieces? And even with those pieces, it's not easy, as I've showed you and going to be showing you. I don't know why people think that this is so easy. Maybe it's because of the way Origin of Life researchers have written their papers, but it's not easy at all. And here's some more. He said most lipids are easy to synthesize. They're made off of a triglyceride. Some have said...
And lipids like triglycerides can be synthesized easily.
Well, we're going to cover that. We're going to show it's not that easy, especially when you're dealing with prebiotic methods. All right, here's the misconceptions. Some have said any biomolecule is easy to synthesize. And further said, Jim knows this. He's a synthetic chemist. What he probably means is that we haven't seen these biomacromolecules form spontaneously outside of a biological system, but that's not what he says. Does not make the distinction, and this seems deliberate on his part. Okay, as far as the psychoanalysis and what's deliberate and what's not deliberate, I'll just walk past that. No, I didn't know that, and neither does any other synthetic chemist. It is difficult for chemists to make most macromolecules, and usually impossible when restricted to prebiotic chemicals and methods, and much harder for the prebiotic earth, where the earth could not buy the 20 amino acids in homochiral form, or the carbohydrates, or the nucleotides, or the lipids, all of those in homochiral form. Those are the building blocks of the building blocks. And no chemist in her right mind would support the nonsensical claim that any biomolecule is easy to synthesize. That's a gross misunderstanding. So, polysaccharides, their building blocks are monomeric sugars. The monomeric sugars are purchased and obtained from living systems. You purchase them. The companies from which you purchase them, they never synthesize from the bottom up these monomeric sugars. They obtain them from living systems. So biology has already supplied this. Rock Auto is supplying this. There was no Rock Auto on early Earth. There was no manufacturer selling these things. Early Earth had no biological systems from which to isolate the sugars. Proteins, their building blocks are amino acids, which are purchased and obtained from living systems. The reason you can make polypeptides, the reason you can hook amino acids together is because you buy the amino acids from a company that has isolated them from a natural source through the digestion of proteins. And through the cleaving of the amide bonds there in the proteins. And these were all obtained from living systems. They were taken from biology, but when you don't have that, what are you going to do? Nucleic acids, their building blocks are nucleotides, which are purchased and obtained from living systems. You purchase the nucleotides from companies. Now, they're not purchased in the raw form. They're purchased already protected so that it can go into your synthesizer, if you still have a synthesizer. Most of this is farmed out right now. But these are purchased, but they're obtained from living systems. These are molecules that are isolated from biological systems and then functionalized with the protecting groups. Lipids, their building blocks are fatty acids and glycerol, which are purchased and obtained from living systems. The fatty acids, they're not found in nature. They're not found in a prebiotic earth. Those are products of biological systems. The glycerol is the product of a biological system. All right, so where do Origin of Life researchers get their chemicals for their stereoscrambled syntheses? They don't make them homochiral, but even for their stereoscrambled syntheses. Well, the gases, they all have conveniently separated into individual cylinders. How convenient! And then the chemicals that they need, the basic chemicals that they need, they just go to the shelf and they pick them up. They're all purified in a bottle as purchased. But early Earth, prebiotic Earth, didn't have that luxury. All the gases were mixed together. So where did early Earth get its chemicals for homochiral syntheses? It had ammonia, presumed methane, oxygen, CO2, hydrogen sulfide, water, sulfate, formaldehyde, carbonate, formate, hydroxide, cyanide, cyanate, metal oxides. Had all of those things. Probably had all of those things. But where are you going to get those on an early Earth? Right there. They're all right there. Go on out there and find them. Okay, so Origin of Life, students working in labs that are doing Origin of Life. Your professor says to you, no, you can't go to this. We don't have any stores of chemicals and gases. Just go out and find them. Go out and find them. Now you have to find them on a prebiotic Earth before there was any life. You got to find all these chemicals, and remember, all the gases are mixed together. They're not conveniently in cylinders. You have to find it all out here. You don't have rockauto.com to call upon. You can't go there to get it. You only have rocks. That's it. You only have rocks and that atmosphere. Imagine the constraints upon a prebiotic Earth. Summary, building blocks of the building blocks. To date, nobody has even made the building blocks of the building blocks for the necessary 4 classes of compounds needed for life, while using the chemicals that would have been available on an early Earth. Yet somehow, under a rock, someplace, the syntheses happened, and bingo! Life was birthed. You think that? You really think that? We're clueless regarding even the building blocks of the building blocks. Remember, the building block would be a protein. We're clueless on the amino acids for making the proteins, let alone the construction of a cell. I mean, that's a big deal.